Chapter 1. The Abandoned Station. The night was pitch black, and the mist was so thick it seemed to swallow all sound. The railway stretched into the distance, broken and rusted like the ribs of a corpse. The station, abandoned for decades, still stood there. Crumbling walls, moss-covered roof, and shattered glass glinting faintly in the moonlight. The protagonist stood at the edge of the platform, unable to explain why he had wandered here. The whole area seemed drenched in deathly silence. Only the sound of the wind cutting through the cracks of the dilapidated station roof echoed like whispers from unseen mouths. Suddenly, a faint sound arose, clack, clack, like the steps of someone dragging their feet across the rotten floorboards. He held his breath, straining his ears, but there was nothing. Then, from deep within the darkness, a long, mournful train whistle rang out. His blood froze. The tracks ahead were broken, twisted, covered in rust, and had long been abandoned. Where could that whistle have come from? The station clock, its glass shattered, hands stopped, suddenly ticked once. The sound was sharp, cold, echoing in the air like the death knell of time. The protagonist felt a chill run down his spine. He realized, without understanding how, that tonight, the train would arrive. Chapter 2. The Mysterious Ticket. The train whistle echoed again. Colder this time, closer. The protagonist scanned the mist-filled darkness, searching for a shadow, a glimmer, but nothing, only silence. Then, at his feet, a faint rustling sound. He looked down and saw an old ticket lying on the ground. He bent to pick it up, and his hand immediately numbed as if touching ice. The ticket was yellowed, worn, the ink nearly gone. On it were printed words: departure, nightfall, destination. In the corner, a single number stood out, stark red, 13. He turned the ticket over. On the back was a smeared streak of blood, with scratches as if clawed in desperation. From deep within the station, footsteps echoed, slow, heavy, dragging, then silence. He looked up. On the broken wooden bench in the corner of the platform, another ticket appeared, then another, and another. In an instant, the bench was covered in tickets, each one marked with the blood-red number 13. A sudden gust of wind blew. The tickets rose into the air, swirling like a storm of moths, falling all around him, and on each one, faint letters appeared: no return. His hands clenched tightly around the first ticket. At that moment, the train whistle blared again, louder, shaking the tracks. The rusted rails trembled, as if something massive was approaching. Through the mist, a pair of blinding headlights pierced the darkness. The ground shook. A massive black train emerged from the void, screeching metal echoing like screams. The ticket in his hand vibrated. New words appeared, written in fresh, red strokes: passenger. And then, in that moment, his own name slowly carved itself onto the paper in blood-red letters. Chapter 3. The Whistle Tearing the Night. The train whistle rose again, longer, sharper, like a rusted blade cutting through the night. The sound dug into his bones, his skin prickling, his heart pounding. It wasn't just a whistle, it was crying, screaming, the voices of hundreds of trapped souls. The headlights seared his eyes, forcing him to shield his face. Even so, the light pierced through, hot and merciless, like the gaze of some hellish beast. The steel wheels screeched as they bit into the rusted tracks. The colossal train emerged, covered in soot and grime, its body blackened, streaked with dried, rust-colored stains. Each carriage was shut tight, windows barely cracked open, faint glints within like predatory eyes watching from the dark. He stumbled back instinctively, but his feet were rooted to the platform. The ticket in his hand quivered, pulsing like a heart. The train stopped in front of him. Black smoke poured from its funnel, twisting into grotesque shapes, faces twisted in agony, severed arms, hollow eyes staring. A heavy clang broke the silence. One of the doors slid open. A sickly yellow light flickered from within, dim, like a dying lamp. From the glow stepped a figure, tall, gaunt, dressed in a decayed conductor's uniform, cap pulled low over his pale face. His eyes were blank, milky white voids. He raised a skeletal hand, fingers long and claw-like, and tapped the ticket in the protagonist's grip. Talk, talk, talk. A rasping voice emerged, dragging each word like stone over gravel. Ticket, ready, board. The whistle blared again, the ground shaking violently. The entire station seemed to collapse under the weight of that sound. And the protagonist knew, if he stepped on, there would be no return. Chapter 4. The Faceless Passengers. Step by step, he climbed the metal stairs. Each footfall echoed in the void. Clank, clank, clank. As soon as he entered the carriage, the heavy iron door slammed shut behind him with a booming thud, sealing his fate. The air was suffocating, thick with mildew and coal smoke. Flickering lamps dangled from the ceiling, their yellow light barely illuminating the endless rows of seats. Every seat was already occupied. He froze. The passengers had no faces. Where eyes, nose, and mouth should have been, there was only a smooth sheet of pale flesh, blank as candle wax. Some wore hats, some cloaks, but all were the same, empty, faceless. And yet, he felt their gaze, their heads turned in unison, bones cracking like splintering wood as their featureless faces locked onto him. A faint laugh trickled through the silence, growing louder, joined by whispers that multiplied. One faceless figure raised its bony hand and beckoned him to sit. Against his will, his legs moved, lowering him into the nearest seat. The air grew icy. He could feel something pressing against his spine. Slowly, the faceless passenger beside him leaned in close. Its blank flesh hovered inches away. Then, from where a mouth should be, a crack split open, oozing black fluid that dripped onto the floor. The train whistle screamed again. The carriage shook violently. All the faceless passengers stood as one, their heads snapping toward him. Chapter 5. The blood-soaked dining car. The faceless passengers rose together, their footsteps heavy, the floor groaning beneath them. The protagonist clutched his ticket, heart hammering. At that moment, the far door creaked open, releasing a strange aroma, sweet at first, then putrid and metallic. From within came the sound of knives and forks clinking. The faceless passengers shuffled toward the door, drawn like moths to flame, compelled by an unseen force. He too followed. As he entered, the door slammed shut behind him. Chaos assaulted his ears, murmurs, chomping, scraping metal. The dining car stretched along, tables lined with white cloths stained with age. Upon them, dishes lay steaming, lavish, almost inviting. Roasted meats, warm bread, gleaming fruits, glasses of dark wine. But closer inspection twisted his stomach. The roasted meat was charred human ribs. The bread split open to reveal purple fingers. The fruit burst with brains and blood. The wine was thick, foul-smelling gore. The faceless sat, lifting knives and forks, devouring greedily. Food vanished into blank flesh, swallowed by mouths unseen. The sound of swallowing echoed grotesquely. At the far end of the car, one seat remained empty. Before it, a silver-covered plate awaited. Beside it stood the conductor, his white eyes unblinking, his rotted lips twisted into a ghastly grin. He tapped the chair with a clawed finger. "Your seat. Eat." Horrified, the protagonist sat. His hands trembled as he lifted the silver lid. Inside was not food. It was a human head. Eyes wide, lips twitching, whispering something inaudible. Chapter 6. The Undead Conductor. The severed head on the plate stared with clouded eyes, lips quivering as if trying to speak. The protagonist's throat locked tight. He could not scream, only release a strangled rasp. All around, the faceless passengers feasted, knives scraping, jaws working, slurping sounds echoing as dark fluid dripped steadily onto the floor. Amid the grotesque scene, the conductor advanced. His uniform was tattered, collar torn to reveal pale, rotting flesh clinging to brittle bone. His milky white eyes pierced through, as though gazing directly into the man's soul. He extended a skeletal hand, fingers grotesquely long, nails black and clawed. His voice scraped the air, dragging each word like rusted iron. "Ticket." With trembling hands, the protagonist placed the ticket on the table. But instead of taking it, the conductor leaned down, rancid breath washing over him, reeking of death. The corners of his mouth split open, exposing jagged yellow teeth stained with bits of human bone. The conductor took the ticket between his teeth. When he lifted his head, the paper bore bloody bite marks. He held it to the dim light, studied it, then slammed it down on the table. "Sit. Do not leave this car without my command." The words reverberated through the carriage. Instantly, The faceless passengers froze mid-bite. All heads twisted toward him, necks cracking, invisible eyes boring holes into his soul. The conductor leaned close, his eyes briefly glowing white. In a rasping whisper, he hissed into his ear, "Lose your ticket, and I'll take your life." Then he turned away, his tall form lumbering among the faceless. His cap shadowed his decayed face, only the ragged stitches on his neck visible. In that moment, the man understood. This conductor was no living man. He was a corpse, resurrected only to guard this cursed train. The whistle shrieked again, long and mournful, like a cry from the abyss. The train lurched violently, plunging deeper into endless night. Chapter 7. The tracks into darkness. The train rattled, wheels grinding metal, screeching painfully. The protagonist clung to his seat, chest heavy, breath shallow. Each lurch dragged his body like a rag doll. The oil lamps flickered weakly, casting trembling light over the faceless passengers, still sitting perfectly still. Occasionally, one neck twisted grotesquely, vertebrae cracking like broken twigs, making him choke on fear. Desperate, he turned to the window. What he saw froze his blood. The tracks no longer cut through forests or ruined cities. They stretched into a black void, so dense even the train's headlight could pierce only a few meters before being swallowed. Shapes flickered in the dark, at first formless shadows, then clearer, giant pale hands clawing from the void, clutching the train's sides, nails screeching across steel with a metallic wail. A grotesque face pressed against the glass. Not human, a warped mass of flesh. Eyes misplaced, mouth split ear to ear. Grinning, black blood smeared the window, dripping onto the floor. He tried to scream, but no sound emerged. More faces appeared outside, dozens, then hundreds, all pressed against the glass, smiling, jaws stretched, mouths opening soundlessly while their nails scratched furiously. Then the oil lamps went out. In the darkness, whispers filled the carriage, hundreds, thousands of voices, murmuring all at once, suffocating his mind. But one phrase rose above the rest, chanted over and over. "It's here, it's here, it's here." His heart pounded violently. Sweat drenched his back. Suddenly, the lamps flared back to life. Through the mist outside, a nameless station loomed, shrouded in thick fog. The train sped toward it, unstoppable, as if pulled by some invisible force. Chapter 8. Whispers on the train. The train thundered ahead, shaking violently, yet the faceless passengers sat unmoving, heads tilted slightly, as if listening to some silent melody. The protagonist clutched his chest, suffocating. Then he began to hear it. At first faint, like wind through cracks, then louder, denser, dozens, hundreds of whispers, seeping from everywhere, floor, ceiling, even from within his chest. They called his name, and he jolted, eyes darting around. The passengers didn't move, but their blank faces seemed to quiver like thin membranes vibrating. Then, clearer, "And you think you escaped?" His blood turned cold. That voice, familiar. It was the voice of a friend long dead in an accident he had buried deep in memory. He stumbled back, shaking, but the whispers multiplied, laughter, sobbing, screams of anguish, each one stabbing into his mind. He clutched his head, falling to the floor. Blood seeped between the planks, pooling around him. In the reflection, he saw faces, friends, family, enemies, all staring, mouths moving in unison. "Come with us." The train whistle screamed again, drowning the whispers. Silence fell, except for his pounding heartbeat and the chilling sensation that something was sitting beside him, whispering into his ear. Chapter 9. The luggage of the dead. The whistle faded, the train steadied, but the whispers still gnawed at his mind. He staggered to the next door. It creaked open, releasing the stench of dust and rot. Inside, there were no seats, only piles of luggage, old trunks, leather bags, wooden chests, stacked like a graveyard of forgotten belongings. He knelt, hands trembling, and opened a suitcase. Inside was not clothing, but a faded funeral portrait, the smiling face warped in the dim light. Next to it lay a blood-stained mourning band and a lock of dried black hair. Panicked, he opened more. One held broken fingernails, another smeared suicide notes, a wedding ring crusted with dried blood, a cracked doll missing half its face, glass eyes glinting. He realized these weren't belongings of the living. They were relics of the dead, trapped here forever. Suddenly, a wooden chest burst open. A pale hand shot out, clutching its edge. All around, knock, knock, knock. The luggage rattled violently, as if someone inside pounded to be freed. Louder, louder. The entire car trembled. Whispers filled the air. Give it back, give it back. A suitcase at his feet snapped open. Inside lay a human skull, eye sockets dripping fresh blood, rolling to a stop at his feet. Chapter 10. The first stop. The pounding ceased. Silence returned. The skull vanished. The train screeched, slowing. The platform appeared outside, a nameless station, cloaked in mist, lit by flickering green flames from tall lanterns. Stains of blood smeared the cracked tiles. The doors slid open. Cold air swept in, reeking of decay. The faceless passengers rose, filing out in eerie unison. Their feet dragged heavily, but their order was perfect. Like puppets. From the fog, figures emerged, not faceless. They had features, faces pale, eyes bulging, blood seeping from mouths and noses. Their steps were crooked, corpse-like. They merged with the departing passengers, exchanging places silently, as if rehearsed for centuries. Horrified, the protagonist backed away. A shadow loomed behind. He turned. The conductor stood there, eyes wide and unblinking. His skeletal hand rose, pointing at the platform. His voice hissed like tearing metal. Your turn. And the man knew, if he stepped onto that platform, he would never return. Chapter 11. The Dead Clock. The train jolted, screeching wheels grinding sparks into the night as it departed the nameless station. The protagonist slumped in his seat, heart pounding, sweat soaking through his shirt. This carriage was darker than the others. The oil lamps flickered weakly, casting dim, sickly light. The air was heavy with rust and rot. Then he saw it. At the far end of the carriage loomed a giant clock fixed to the wall. Its glass face was cracked, its hands frozen at 0-100. He frowned. When he first boarded, he remembered it was near midnight. Yet after everything, the stations, the horrors, the clock hadn't moved. Suddenly, tick, tick, tick. The hands twitched, but instead of moving forward, they jolted backward, inching to 23:59, then stopping. A low groan echoed, like bending metal. Whispers erupted, hundreds of voices overlapping. No time left. It repeats, it repeats. No escape. He clutched his head, but the voices stabbed directly into his mind. The clock shuddered violently. Cracks spread across its glass face until, shatter, a pale hand burst through. Fingers long and sharp, clawing for him. He stumbled back, crashing into a seat. The clock let out a deafening bang. Instantly, everything died. The lamps, the train's rumble, even the breaths of the faceless passengers. Silence. In the void, only one sound remained. Tick, tick, tick. He could no longer tell if it was the clock or his own heart beating off rhythm. Chapter 12. The child crying in the night. Darkness smothered the carriage. The ticking continued, faint but relentless. Then another sound pierced through. The cry of a baby. At first distant, then nearer, louder, shrill, filling every corner. The faceless passengers tilted their heads toward the sound, as if listening. Their smooth skin quivered faintly, like something stirring beneath. The man turned sharply. Behind his seat, the cushions were damp, glistening with streaks of tears or blood. He staggered to the next carriage. The cries grew louder, more urgent. There, in the corner, a wooden cradle rocked by unseen hands. A white cloth covered the bundle inside. His body screamed not to, but his hands moved anyway, pulling back the cloth. No infant, only a porcelain doll, cracked and worn. Its glass eyes glowed red, its tiny mouth opening, wailing like a newborn. Then, its mouth stretched grotesquely wide, laughter spilling out, high-pitched and manic. The faceless passengers all turned their heads, blank faces splitting into twisted grins. They laughed together, the sound a cacophony that rattled the walls. The man dropped the cloth. The cradle stilled, the crying stopped. Relief washed over him until a whisper hissed from inside the cradle, chilling him to the marrow. Your turn. Chapter 13. The coffin car. The next door groaned open, revealing darkness reeking of death. Inside, stacked to the ceiling, lay coffins, wooden boxes, some rotting, some splintered, nails clawed into their lids. Long scratches etched deep. At first, silence. Then knock, knock, knock. A chorus of fists pounding from within. Coffins rattled violently. Lids shifted. Pale hands burst out, clawing at the air. He froze as one coffin creaked open at his feet. A face peered out, ashen. Tongue dangling. Blood dripping. Eyes he recognized. It was someone he had known. Someone who had died years ago in a train crash, the same one he alone had survived. The corpse grinned, mouth splitting wider. Come with us, all of us. Every coffin lid flew open. Hundreds of hands surged forward. Reaching, grasping, tearing. He ran, desperate, but the door at the far end receded, stretching farther away with every step. Fingers clawed at him, scraping his skin, leaving trails of black blood. Then, the whistle shrieked. Deafening. Instantly, every coffin slammed shut. The sound thundered like thousands of tombs sealing at once. The door burst open. He hurled himself through, collapsing into faint yellow light. Chapter 14. The Return of the Familiar. He stumbled into the next carriage. Gasping, drenched in sweat, the lights here were steadier, brighter, and the seats were not filled with faceless passengers. They were filled with people he knew. Teachers, childhood friends, neighbors, loved ones, all dead, all sitting upright, staring blankly ahead. His legs shook. He whispered, "No, impossible, you're all dead?" From a corner, a chuckle. He turned. A man sat by the window, pale but smiling, his best friend, the one who had died in that train wreck. Long time, huh? The friend rasped. The protagonist stammered. You died? His friend leaned forward, grin splitting wider. Yeah, I died, but what about you? You think you're alive? Every other familiar face turned toward him in unison, their eyes glassy, mouths moving together in silence. But he could read the words clearly. You should have died with us. The whistle screamed, the lamps flickered, their faces blurred, melting back into the dark. But his friend's laughter lingered, echoing endlessly. Chapter 15. The Station of Hell. The laughter faded, replaced by screeching metal. The train rattled violently. Through the window, the void cracked open, spilling crimson light. A station emerged, massive. Aflame, forged of black stone and chains glowing red-hot. Skeletons dangled from the walls. The ground was cracked, scorched, dripping blood. Above, the sky churned with fiery clouds, lightning splitting like veins across it. The train screeched to a halt. The doors opened, heat blasted in, suffocating, reeking of burning flesh. On the platform, charred figures staggered forward, dragging chains, bodies blistered, flesh peeling. Their screams echoed like a chorus of the damned. The conductor appeared, white eyes blazing. He raised his hand, and the faceless passengers rose. One by one they stepped off, their blank skin splitting into screaming mouths as they hit the fiery ground. The protagonist sat frozen. The air scorched his lungs. Then, behind him, the voice rasped, "Your turn." The conductor loomed, skeletal hand outstretched. And he knew, if he left the train now, he would be swallowed by hellfire, never to return. Chapter 16. The Figure in the Mirror. The door slammed shut, cutting off the screams from the hell station. The protagonist collapsed into a seat, heart hammering, sweat dripping down his face. This carriage was different, narrow, lined with tarnished metal walls that dimly reflected the flickering lamplight. At its center stood a towering mirror, spanning from floor to ceiling, blocking the aisle. He approached cautiously. His reflection moved with him at first, but then, it lagged. He raised his left hand. The reflection raised its right. He frowned. The reflection smiled. Fear gnawed at him. He stepped back, but the reflection stepped forward. Its face twisted, eyes hollow, grin tearing wide to reveal jagged teeth. He turned to flee, but the door had vanished. All around, the walls were lined with mirrors. Each reflection warped, hundreds of versions of himself. Pale, fanged, hollow-eyed, grinning grotesquely. Then, they moved independently. The glass cracked. From within, hands thrust out, skeletal, clawing, grabbing his arms, legs, dragging him toward the mirrors. He screamed, thrashing, but the grip tightened. His head slammed against the cold glass. For one last moment, he saw his reflection, not twisted, but calm, smiling faintly, ticket in hand. Then, darkness. He was pulled into the void beyond the glass. The lamps went out. The carriage drowned in black. Chapter 17. The murmurs of the tracks. Light flickered back. The man awoke in a jolt, drenched in cold sweat. Somehow, he had escaped the mirror car. But the train kept rumbling into the abyss. He pressed to the window. His blood froze. The tracks beneath were not steel. They were bones, laid end to end. The wheels crushed them, snapping joints, grinding marrow. Then came the whispers, faint at first, rising louder, like thousands of mouths beneath the train. Release us. We were crushed. You will join us. Between the bones, faces pressed up, crushed, mangled, screaming silently. The floor cracked beneath him. Pale hands erupted, clawing his ankles, pulling him down. He shrieked, thrashing, as black blood seeped from the cracks, flooding the floor. At the far end, the conductor appeared, white eyes glowing faintly. His voice rasped. These tracks are built from traitors' bones. You will become part of them. The floor split wider. He fought to break free, but the hands dragged harder, pulling him toward the bone rails below. Chapter 18. The experiment car. With a desperate wrench, he tore free, stumbling into the next carriage. It was freezing inside. Lamps dim blue, shadows crawling across the walls. Tables lined the room, rusted metal slabs, blood-caked instruments, jars filled with grotesque specimens, eyes still darting, hearts still beating, severed heads mouthing silent screams. Each jar labeled with names and the chilling phrase, "Boarding complete." Behind bars, cages held half-living bodies, mutilated, sewn together, twitching in agony. One head grew from a torso's stomach, mouth clutching a blood-stained ticket. The air stank of rot and chemicals. From the shadows emerged a towering figure in a bloody lab coat, face hidden behind a cracked mask. In his hands, a massive iron clamp scraped sparks across the floor. His voice thundered, hollow, inhuman. At last, a new specimen. The man backed against the locked door, terror flooding his veins. The caged abomination screamed, thrashing wildly, as though warning him of the fate awaiting him. Chapter 19. The second conductor. The carriage shook violently. The lab figure vanished. In his place stood another, a tall man in a conductor's cap, eyes white and lifeless. The protagonist's stomach dropped. The man's face was his own. It smiled, a grotesque tear splitting to the ears. Its voice rasped, echoing with mockery. You thought you were a passenger? You were always the one meant to collect the tickets. On its chest gleamed a ticket, nailed into flesh, written upon it, owner, his name. The abominations shrieked in their cages, bursting free, crawling toward him. He pounded on the door, and by some miracle it burst open. He fled into the next car, heart pounding, but the truth burned in his mind. He had already been marked as part of the train. Chapter 20. Car 13. This carriage was nearly empty. At its end stood a black iron door, its surface scarred, the number 13 painted blood red. It was ajar. Cold wind seeped through, carrying the drone of countless voices whispering, "Enter, enter, enter." His trembling hand touched the handle. The door burst open. Beyond lay not a car but an endless corridor of coffins, cages, and luggage. Walls lined with hundreds of stopped clocks, all frozen at 0-100. At its center stood a towering iron throne, welded from broken wheels and bones, dripping black blood. Seated upon it, another conductor, eyes white, lips twisted, and his face, it was his own. Aged, rotten, distorted. The figure grinned, voice echoing through the hall. You've come far enough. From here, you replace me. Thousands of faceless passengers turned in unison, necks cracking, advancing slowly. The door slammed shut behind him. He was trapped inside car 13. Chapter 21. The driverless train. The footsteps of faceless passengers thundered closer. In panic, the man burst through a door and stumbled inside. It was the engine room. The space was cramped, glowing red from flickering warning lamps. Before him stretched a control panel cluttered with rusted levers, broken gauges, and cracked dials. The steering wheel was frozen stiff, unresponsive no matter how he pulled or turned. The driver's chair sat coated in dust and dried blood, lines scratched into it forming jagged words. No driver. The wheels are fate. He turned to the forward window. His breath stopped. The train wasn't running on rails. It barreled forward over a path made of millions of pale hands. Fingers interlocked, nails digging deep, each time the wheels crushed them. Black blood spurted as their bones cracked. Horrified, he stumbled back. Suddenly, the control panel flared alive. Alarms shrieking. From above, a steel hatch slid open, revealing countless ghostly hands dangling from the ceiling, clamping down on the levers and wheels. The train wasn't driven. It was pulled forward by the damned themselves. Enslaved forever. Behind him, a whisper slithered. "Did you think you could escape? This is only the beginning." He spun around. Sitting in the driver's chair now was the second conductor, his own face. Twisted, with white glowing eyes and a rotting smile. Chapter 22. The journey back in time. The whistle wailed, the instruments rattled, and all gauges pointed to zero. The glass window shattered. Outside, space warped, bending until the void gave way to rain. He gasped. It was the night of the crash. The same tracks, the same storm. The train screamed into the curve that had once doomed it. He saw the faces pressed against the windows, those who had died that night, friends. Strangers, all staring, mouths tearing open, chanting, "Why did you survive?" Their screams tore through him. He clutched the wheel, trying to stop the train, but pale hands burst from the controls, pinning his arms. A voice thundered in his skull. "No one changes the past. It only repeats." The train lurched, tilted into the fatal curve. He screamed, and then, silence. The rain vanished. The abyss returned. He looked down at his ticket. The ink had changed. In blood-red words, "Survivors must pay." Chapter 23. The distant song. He collapsed into a seat, trembling. Then it came. A song. Soft at first, almost sweet, then clearer. A lullaby. His chest tightened. That voice, he knew it. The voice of a woman he had once loved, taken by the crash years ago. Tears blurred his eyes. The lullaby wrapped around him, tugging at his soul. From the far end of the car, a figure appeared, a woman in white, long hair veiling her face. She glided silently forward, leaving damp footprints behind. She lifted her head, hollow eyes stared, her mouth splitting impossibly wide. Yet the familiar song flowed from within. And, "Come with me?" Her hand stretched toward him, nails lengthening into claws, grazing his cheek with icy skin. His mind reeled, pulled into the endless void within her gaze. A voice hissed deep inside him, gentle yet damning, "Stop resisting. Stay forever." Chapter 24. The inverted carriage. He screamed, wrenching free, stumbling through the next door. The carriage beyond defied reason. Everything was upside down. Seats, lamps, windows, all fixed to the ceiling. The faceless passengers sat inverted above him, heads drooping, arms dangling downward. Then, crack, 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 every neck twisted 180 degrees. Hundreds of blank faces turned toward him. "You don't belong here," they whispered in unison. They stood, though upside down. They walked effortlessly across the ceiling, their arms stretched down, claws nearly brushing his head. He ran, but they mirrored him above, pounding across the ceiling. He slipped, falling into a slick trail of black blood smeared across the floor. It dragged him toward a gaping crack, from which a pale hand clawed out, seizing his ankle. He fought wildly, pulling free. Ahead, the door burst open, spilling dim yellow light. He hurled himself through as the inverted passengers lunged, claws swiping inches from his back. Chapter 25. The man who never left. The door slammed. Silence. This carriage was clean, quiet. Only one figure sat inside, an old man, thin and frail, with a ragged beard and hollow eyes that glowed faintly. The old man leaned on his cane, lips curling in a weary smile. His voice rasped like dry wind. "You're new? I've been waiting." The protagonist stammered. Who are you?" The old man sighed. "The first passenger, and the last who has never stepped off." "Do you know how long I've been here?" He shook his head, throat tight. "Over 100 years, the old man whispered. "Every time the train stops at hell, at shadow, at mirror, I refused to leave, but still I cannot escape. The train never lets go. It only keeps me alive, to watch others be devoured." His hands shook, his eyes burned with grief. "Do not fool yourself. One day, you will be the conductor. Or part of the train. Like me. The man cried. No. I'll escape. The old man laughed bitterly, echoing through the car. Escape? Those who step off, did you not see them? They burned. They vanished. There is no freedom here. His gaze sharpened suddenly. There is only one way out, but it will cost more than your soul. Before the man could ask, the whistle wailed. The lamps flickered out. When they relit, the seat was empty. The old man was gone. Only his cane remained, etched with hundreds of tally marks, carved year after year of endless imprisonment. Chapter 26. The Mirror Station. The whistle moaned. The train slowed, screeching wheels sparking. The door opened. The man stepped out and froze. The station was built entirely of mirrors. Walls, floor, ceiling, every surface reflected him endlessly. At first, only his own image stared back. But soon, the reflections twisted. One showed him pale, blood pouring from his eyes. Another, hanging by the neck, tongue lolling. Another, seated as a conductor, eyes white, mouth split wide. He stumbled back, yet the reflections advanced, smiling grotesquely. Their mouths moved in unison, chanting, "You cannot escape, you already belong?" The mirrors cracked, hands burst through, clawing, dragging him toward the glass. He fled deeper into the station, but every turn led only to more mirrors, more twisted selves, all laughing. Desperate, he raised the cane left by the old man and smashed a mirror. It shattered, revealing a swirling black void. The whispers hissed, "You have chosen. There is no turning back." Hands reached for him from every direction. He leapt into the void. Chapter 27. The Return Ticket. He landed hard on a wooden floor. A single table stood in the empty carriage. Upon it lay a glowing ticket, silver-edged, words etched bright. Return. Trembling, he touched it. Instantly, the carriage shook. Light split through the darkness, opening cracks to another world. Then a chorus of voices boomed. The return costs a soul. To leave, another must take your place. Choose. Faces appeared in the light, family, friends, strangers, all gazed at him, pleading, accusing. Sweat drenched him. The choice was unbearable. Behind, pale hands erupted from the floor, clutching him, dragging him toward the abyss. The voices screamed louder. Choose. Now. He gripped the silver ticket tight, shaking. His heart knew the truth. To escape, he must damn another. And yet, Chapter 28. The Endless Night. He screamed, "No, I won't sacrifice anyone." The silver ticket went dark. The hands vanished. Silence fell. When he opened his eyes, he was back in the first carriage. Faceless passengers sat in their seats, heads tilted. The lamps flickered. The door at the end creaked open. Beyond it lay the dining car. White tablecloths, silver knives, and the conductor's voice rasped from the shadows. "Ticket? Where is your ticket?" His mind reeled. Everything was repeating. The luggage car, the coffins, the stations, all beginning again. He slumped into his seat. Outside, the void stretched eternal. The train's whistle shrieked. Time stopped at 0. A whisper slid into his skull. "The train will carry you forever, forever, forever?" He screamed, but his voice was swallowed by the endless night. Chapter 29. The Truth of the Train. The whistle howled. From the darkness, a towering figure emerged. It was no passenger, no conductor. Its body was skeletal, draped in rotting flesh. Its face was a train's engine mask, rusted and warped, glowing red eyes burning from its sockets. Its voice thundered like grinding iron. "Do you want the truth? You never escaped. You never lived. You died that night with the rest." The man shook violently. "No, I survived. I lived." The figure pointed a bony claw to his chest. "Then why has your heart not beaten since that night? Why does your shadow never fall on the floor? You are already ours. You are part of the train." Memories surged. The crash, the screams, the darkness. His survival was an illusion. The carriage filled with whispers. Thousands of voices chanting, "You never left the train." The lamps went out. Only the burning red eyes of the engine-faced figure remained, glaring into his soul. Chapter 30. The Iron Throne of the Conductor. Darkness dissolved. A vast hall opened before him. Walls built from blood-stained tickets. Ceiling lost in shadow. At its center stood an immense iron throne, welded from broken wheels, chains, and bones, dripping black blood. Upon it sat the conductor. His cap shadowed a decayed face, eyes white and hollow. He rose, stepping down the iron stairs, each footfall echoing like a hammer. The man's stomach twisted. This conductor's face was his own. Rotted, twisted. You were never a passenger. You were always the air. Thousands of faceless passengers appeared, kneeling, chanting, "The new conductor, the new conductor." Chains shot from the floor, binding his wrists, ankles, dragging him up the steps. He screamed, thrashing, but the more he fought, the tighter the chains cut into flesh. The old conductor pressed a blood-red ticket into his chest. "This is the last stop. From now on, you are me." The whistle roared, deafening. He was slammed onto the throne. His eyes turned white. His mouth split into a grotesque grin. Around him, the faceless bowed. The eternal train screamed into the abyss, carrying its new master. There was no dawn. There was no end. Only the whistle, shrill and endless, echoing through the eternal night.